Hello everybody and welcome to the grand finale of Corrieliminator. I'm Michael.
I'm Gemma.
And we are very, very excited to be here today to try and figure out, at last, after a whole year of Corrieliminator, who is going to be making it to that top spot. We got 30 characters left from across the years and we are going to be ranking them tonight. So from 30 right down to 1. I'm a little bit trepidatious about this. How about you?
I've been worrying about this.
That all evening, Gemma's been like, "I can't. This is too much pressure. I can't cope with this." It's a pretty big responsibility, I have to say. And we've not really had any we've not had any pre-discussion, have we, about how this is going to work?
I can't even remember who's in it.
Exactly. Well, we're going to find out together today. If you've not watched a Corrieliminator before, you're kind of starting with the wrong one, really. I suppose there was a clue in the name, but never mind. You can go back and watch the others.
Some people will just watch this one because some people.
This is the ultimate countdown of ultimate Coronation Street characters. We started off with 300 characters a year ago, and once every round we took 30 of them, whittled them down to 3, ranking them until we had 3 at the top, and then they've made it into the grand finale today. So we have got the cream of the crop today. We have got the top 3 from all the last 10 rounds. Somehow we're going to rank them, and that's just going to be the definitive, nobody can disagree with. Absolutely, people are going to be making books about this, I don't know, list of Coronation Street characters ever, and that's how it works. So anything you wanna add before we get started, Gemma?
No.
Nothing. We're just going to get on with this. Before we get started on this, we have got the listener vote, of course, for round 10. So here it is. This is how you have voted in round 10, and don't forget the top 3 from this round are going to go into the grand finale of the listener vote. More on that in a little bit. But hey, let's see who we have got here. Becky McDonald was your number 1 voted character last month, with 73.2% of people voted for Becky up there. So
that's probably one of the highest ones we've ever had.
She is a popular young lady, is Ms. McDonald. Then we've got, from young lady to old lady, Phyllis Pierce came in second spot here with 58% of you voting for her. I know, I'm surprised at this. I do love Phyllis.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I didn't realise she was quite so popular.
Yeah.
And then finally in third place, we've got very odd one, I think, but good for him. Ryan Connor, old Scarface, has made it into the grand finale I don't say whatever I want, of the listener Corrieliminator grand finale. So they'll be joining the other 27 characters that you've already voted. Let's just have a look at who almost made it. Well, Alan Bradley was next. Really interesting one. Smashed by a tram. And then Ken Barlow after that. So Ken Barlow made it into our grand finale tonight, but he's not there in the list. I can't believe it. I can't believe that more people voted for Ryan Connor than Ken. What are you doing?
The biggest shocker for me on this list is the votes for Carla.
I thought, Carla's a popular lady at the moment, isn't she? Where is she? I can't see. Yeah, only 11% of you voted for Carla this time.
I thought Carla was like a clear favourite.
I thought she was as well, but that's just the way the Corrie cookie crumbles. We got a couple of characters, we've got to give them a shout out, that didn't get any votes this time. Jackie Dobbs, sorry. Nita Desai, Ronnie Clayton. Oh, and that's it. At least Kathy Matthews got 1 vote, bless her. But
and so did Ed.
Ed did as well, and
good for you guys.
Good for them. Good for them. If you're watching the video version of this on YouTube, you can have a good old look at this and study it to your heart's content. Let's have a look then at what that means for the listener top 30. So, these are the characters that you're going to be able to vote for the listener grand finale of Corrieliminator. So there'll be votes for that in the video link, the podcast link, all over the place. We'll vote this. We'll keep the vote running, probably for about a month or so until the end of June. So make sure you pick your top 3 characters. And we'll have some kind of listener ranking there. It's similar to ours, but not exactly the same. So from round 1, you put through Vera Duckworth, Blanche Hunt, and Gail Platt. From round 2, we had Pat Phelan, Emily Bishop, and Steve McDonald. Round 3 saw Elsie, Jack, and Betty go through. Round 4, proper classics. Look at this here. We got Hilda Ogden, we got Bet Lynch, and we have got Evelyn Plummer. And then round 5, both croppers, Roy and Hayley, made it through, along with the Mayor of Weatherfield, as was Sally Webster / Metcalf. Round 6, Queen of the Cabinet is Rita that's gone through, along with Richard Hillman and Peter Barlow. Round 7, we had Deirdre, Alf, and Eddie Yates. Love it that Eddie managed to sneak in there. Round 8, you put through David Platt, Graham Proctor, and Mavis Riley / Wilton. Round 9, we had a bit of a draw this time, so we got 4 people going through from round 9 for you. Liz, Leanne, Tracy, and Audrey. And then, of course, as we've just said, round 10, the people that you put through were Ryan, Phyllis, and Becky. So, if you've got 3 favourites there, come on, I know you do. Get across to our poll, vote for your favourites, and we'll see how they did in a month or so's time. But that's enough about the listener vote. Let's get on to the main event tonight, the grand finale of Corrieliminator. Let's get Corrieliminating. Okay, so here we are, our final 30 laid out in front of us. Very similar to the listener vote, but not exactly the same. Shall we just run down who we've got before we get started? We got Abby Webster, Blanche Hunt, Gail Platt, we got Pat Phelan, Emily Bishop, Steve McDonald, Elsie Tanner, Jack Duckworth, Betty Williams, Hilda Ogden, Bet Lynch, Ina Sharples, Hayley Cropper, Jenny Connor, Fred Elliott, Rita Tanner, Littlewood, whatever, she's many things, Richard Hillman, Raquel Wollstonhume / Watts, Deirdre, we got Alf Roberts, we got Derek Wilton, David Platt, we got Stan Ogden, Mavis Wilton, got both Wiltons in the finale, can you believe it? Audrey, we got Dennis Tanner, of course we have, Gemma was voting, we got Liz McDonald, Ken Barlow, Carla Connor, and Becky McDonald. These are our characters, our top Corrie characters ever, as decided by us, that we're going to try and be ranking for you this evening. I mean, does the top 3 matter? We're not Corrie-eliminating the remaining 27 to only leave a cast of 3, are we? I think, you know, if they've reached this round, they're pretty safe. What do you think?
Well, they're not safe because we're going to sort them.
Yeah, but they've still made it to the grand finale.
Yeah, these are the top. So do you really think these are the top 30 best Corrie characters? I don't.
Not necessarily. I think there's some in here that, you know, are probably going to be easier to put down towards the lower end.
Yeah.
The top's going to be absolutely insane. And we were talking the other day about how to do this and whether we should be like making our own individual top 30s, didn't we? Because it'd just be too impossible to come up with a list together. But we decided to go with it anyway because
I said people would like to hear us argue.
There's going to be arguments with this. I can't deny that there may, but you know, is there going to be bargaining? You know, I'll let you put this person here if you let me put this one here. I don't know. If we had done this with all 300, yeah,
I think that we wouldn't have ended up necessarily with some of these characters.
Not all of them, absolutely, but some of them we definitely would. We have really got some absolute Corrie icons here, and as we rank them, as always, I suppose, we're going to have to be thinking both in terms of personal favourites and overall importance to the show. Well, that's what it's always been, isn't it?
Kind of.
Yeah, it's a hard old business. Second. This is what people have been asking us, and we just give them very wishy-washy answers of just, you know,
it depends on
whatever order we think.
Which way the wind's blowing.
It does. Okay, so I think we need to start off with some harshness. Who are we putting towards the bottom? I think there's some, I would say, some clearish contenders, but not very many, about who's going to sadly be making the bottom end of this top 30, which is still a respectable position. Don't get me wrong. Are we thinking that maybe Derek's going to be down there? Poor old Derek Wilton.
Derek down.
Dither in Derek. He's absolutely brilliant character. I love him. He's hilarious. Peter Baldwin played him so perfectly. You know, this pompous. He just didn't know what was going on. No, he didn't have any idea of the sense or care.
No self-awareness.
That's it, self-awareness. What people thought of him. He just did his own thing. He thought he was right. He would talk down to Mavis. He was terrible in some ways, but he was just so lovable. And I think as part of the Wilton family, he was such a really, really important part. I loved him just for his pomposity and. I brought Norris into the street. I loved everything about his stories about his ex-wife Angela. The courting between him and Mavis in the 70s and 80s was just brilliant. He's one half of an absolute bona fide, excellent Corrie couple. But I think if we look at who else we've got on the list there aren't very many who I would say would go beneath him. I don't think there's any, do you? I think Derek's going to have to be number 30. Sorry, Derek fans.
Well, who else do I think should be... See, this is time for controversial opinions, isn't it? This is.
Yeah, and one of the things that we haven't done here, of course, is say who we voted as 1, 2, and 3 in each round as well.
Yeah, that should be the way of doing it.
We may well be going back on what we'd said 10 months ago for someone. It doesn't matter, doesn't it? That might all be part of the bargaining. I'm kind of stuck already for who's going to go.
Can we just throw out some not necessarily, this is 29, but people that are in the bottom third?
It's really, really tough. It's seriously
can I not
difficult.
Just say some?
Who would you say?
Betty.
I would probably say that as well. And she is a proper Corrie icon, isn't she?
I really have a deep appreciation for Betty. We've watched her in the very early years, and she came in and she was a darts champion, and seeing her sort of change, and
she was always no nonsense, but it just got gradually grumpier as the years go on.
Who she reminds me of, which is going to sound strange, but she really was like a non-glamorous, non-showbiz Glenda, in that she was so confident behind that bar. What she said went. She filled the room. She was very charismatic and big and bubbly. And just like Glenda.
Yeah, I see some kind of similarity there. Like, Glenda is also pretty no-nonsense as well. And if she doesn't like something, it don't happen. I'm looking forward to seeing, as we're recording in late May 2025, what the future holds for Glenda behind the bar there. But, she's also, Betty lent the Rovers its iconic hot pot. She's still there, isn't she, as a portrait on the wall. And I think she's Corrie's longest running barmaid as well. So there's so many reasons why she is so important and key to the show. But I think she didn't have as many big stories for herself.
What was her big stories? She never really had. She came from an era of Coronation Street where everyone didn't have to have an A story.
Yeah,
the cast was such a thing, really.
The cast was small enough that anybody would be an integral part of the show. I mean, obviously you had the story about when it was discovered that she was actually Gordon's mum and not his aunt. And she was just she was like in the side stories in the Rovers, wasn't she? When we had Bet and Betty and Fred and Alec in the Rovers together in the 80s and early 90s, they were a proper golden era dream team. And she was just she was the deadpan. She was the straight man, if you will, to some of the comedy that went round with the rest of the characters. She poured
cold water on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And Glenda does that a little bit sometimes with like Gemma or when something really wacky happens.
Yeah.
She can sometimes be the straight man.
I don't want to disparage anybody. Not a single person on this list isn't someone who I absolutely adore. But comparing Betty to some of those other names there, I'm going to say somewhere in the bottom third is where she's going to end up. Who else are you thinking? You said you wanted to throw a few more names out.
I said it was going to be controversial. I mean, no matter what happens, somebody's favourite is going to
for sure. We've got the Betty fans have already got out their notepads and are writing us a letter of complaint.
Do you know who I don't think it needs to be that high? Liz. Yeah.
Oh, Liz MacDonald.
Yeah.
I think again, looking at who we've got here, I don't disagree with you there. Do you want to justify yourself a bit with that one?
I think a lot of her tenure in the Rovers was ruined a bit by Michelle.
Yeah, I didn't like those two together, and just how they treated Steve there was really not fun.
I liked her, but I think there's a lot of other people that are kind of similar to her. I mean,
I think that she is still one of Coronation Street's most iconic barmaids ever. She's
a landlady.
And landlady too. She's top 5 barmaid material. She was working at the Rovers from 1990 odd on and off for a good 20 years. The Rovers was Liz's domain for most of her time in the show. I love the friendship she had with Deirdre, Blanche looking down her nose at her. I obviously adored the relationship with Jim. That's another proper iconic Corrie couple there. I don't think I would say I missed her when she was gone.
No, I know, that's the thing. Like, she's such a massive name and she kind of just blobbed off.
She did blob off, for lack of a better phrase, at the very end, but I think that was a COVID issue, wasn't it? But she came in and out of the show over the years, but she was certainly very in your face. She was like Betty, a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
You didn't want to get on her bad side.
But if I'm thinking of like storylines and things, she's obviously had some really, really meaty things, but mostly I just think of her as for antics.
She was good for
antics, and I think Steve is the same.
Yes, I enjoyed her antics with Moira in the medical centre as well.
Yeah.
I think some of the other Liz stories that stand out for me, kind of like dark gangstery ones as well, like when she got involved with Fraser Henderson, and I didn't particularly enjoy that. Then you had kind of the whole saga with Jim beating her up and that domestic abuse, and it was a bit miserable.
I think that's what I remember. Like, her early days were kind of like criminal, dark, and then as she grew older, she became more of a silly character, like with her relationship with
Vernon.
Liz
and Vernon was fantastic. I really am enjoying watching them on ITV3 at the moment. I did like the mother-son relationship that she and Steve had, as much as she henpecked him some of the time. You got the boobs, you got the zigzag necklace, you got the various hairstyles over the year, but you're right. I think she doesn't spark joy in quite the same way as some of the others on this list.
She doesn't spark joy. You got to chuck her out.
I'm thinking, and maybe this is controversial as well here. And
are you leaning too close to the camera?
No, it's fine. Maybe my chin's going out of the shot. It's okay. I am sadly thinking if we're looking at long-term legendary status, I think in the bottom half of this list somewhere we got to have my lovely, lovely Raquel.
Gee, I was looking at her thinking that. I'm thinking Michael will never agree to it.
I've got to be harsh. Raquel was my favourite character when I was growing up. When I first started watching Coronation Street in the 1990s, her Curly, if there was such thing as shipping back then, that was me. If we could do it, or if there was Twitter, I'd be hashtag Curly and Raquel in. But I think, her time in the show burned very brightly, but it was out fast. She came in as the better by girl. She was a bit of a cow to Curly at the start. she had affairs with Des. I think one of the things that I love most about Raquel is just how soppy Curly was for her, and when the two of them were together, and she was pitying him. It was. I didn't care. I just loved it. The wedding episode was one of my favourite Coronation Streets ever, even though she was crying in the toilets beforehand. I've kind of since rewatched it and see Raquel and the whole relationship in a bit of a different light, really. And also the Millennium episode where she comes back. She'd been away from the show for a couple of years. Sarah Lancashire turns up at the door. There's brilliant conversations about, living in France. Curly realising that he's got a daughter. He takes her up to the attic, looks through a telescope. That was one of my all-time Corrie faves ever. But I don't think that 25 odd years since we've seen her last, I don't feel like she's stayed in the Corrie iconic memories. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, like in the
I'm
zeitgeist.
gutted, absolutely gutted to say that, but I think that's the way it is, and I think I might just have to let her go. Anyone else that you're thinking for bottom bit?
Got a couple more.
Go on.
Who are related?
Go on, say it.
Do you have a guess?
Are you thinking putting Steve there?
No. Well, Steve should probably be there, yeah.
Why is this? I mean, he's gone off the ball in the last few years, hasn't he? You cannot deny that. But we can't just keep thinking about the way Steve is right now.
Yeah, but the trouble with that is that I don't really know much about the 90s.
No, I know. Well, he came in with the rest of the McDonald's in 1989.
I know he did.
And he and Andy were, they were Corrie's answer to the people saying that Corrie's just full of fuddy-duddies. And
They're
so,
like,
like,
"Oh, yeah?
here's some handsome Jason Donovan types.
Look at these guys."
And they would be fighting, they'd be having their girlfriends, they'd be drinking, getting up to all capers and mischief. And Steve, how many times has he been in prison? I don't know. Steve was Mr. Cool in Coronation Street for quite a while, wasn't he?
Who do you think...
You wouldn't believe it now because he turned into a bit of a sad middle-aged guy. But he was one of the main characters. He was the main guy in Coronation Street for quite a long time. And it was that relationship with Michelle, I think, that sadly turned him into a Michelle of his former self. So I think it wouldn't be right necessarily for him to go in the top half, in my opinion. Do you want to add anything more about Steve?
No.
Who else have you got then?
I've got a mother and a daughter.
No, just not Gail and Audrey.
Yeah.
Yep. You're getting out the big guns now. Seriously. Wow. Okay.
Now,
You're going to need to justify yourself there.
Everybody obviously clearly loves Gail because we had when she left.
Yeah, after 40
and everybody
years. No, 50 years, wasn't it?
Talking about how great Gail was and stuff, and we talked at great length about her character and everything. But I don't think I've ever super loved her compared to some of the other people on this list. I think that she's been a really great constant presence in Coronation Street. She was definitely an every woman kind of character.
Yeah.
A really good long-suffering mum for David.
I think she was
her relationship with David is like one of the best things about her. For
sure. I think she's the sort of character that a lot of women watching Coronation Street could relate to. You know, the useless husband, the tearaway kids, the flighty mum, the mother-in-law from hell with Ivy back in the late 80s, early 90s. But like we just said with Steve, she did kind of go on the decline a bit in her later years. Obviously, the Richard Hillman saga was absolutely epic, where she was rightly the front and centre of, and Helen Worth put in some of her best performances there.
Okay, but a bit like...
It's a really difficult one.
Okay, so Ken is definitely like the main man character of Coronation Street, isn't he?
There he is. There's Ken.
There isn't really anybody like that for women because there's never been anybody in it the whole time who's been a woman. It's really only a fluke that Ken has made it through.
Yeah.
There were certainly periods where it was very, he nearly left or they nearly got rid of him.
I mean, Gail's probably the closest you've got
That's
in a
exactly
way,
what I
haven't
was
you?
getting at.
Yeah.
But just like Harry Potter is the least interesting character in Harry Potter, I think Gail is not that much of an interesting character. It's more the things that have happened to her that make her interesting. Because her reactions are always, like I said, like in every woman, kind of like she's never done anything super outrageous. She's never, got drunk and flashed her boobs or stayed out all night or killed anybody or, had a fight with somebody unprovoked. She's really been a very placid, get on with it kind of a person.
Well, unless David was worried on her up too much.
But that's why they've thrown so much stuff at her, because it's funny, it's fun to watch somebody like that get challenged continuously.
Yeah.
But imagine how it really is her family and her bad choice in men that have led her to such a colourful life that she's had. If Gail lived in, like, I don't know, Devon, she would have done nothing, would she, with her life at all? She would just have had three kids and that, enjoyed being alive.
Wow. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to put...
Do you not think she is a bit boring as a person?
She is a little bit boring. I'm not going to deny it. She's had some colourful stories, colourful relationships, but on her own... Maybe,
she's really likeable.
She's super likeable.
You'd like to know her in real life, which makes her not a very interesting character.
I loved how she went on with Jessie in the end. I really, really did. I think that her relationship with Michael Rodwell was adorable. I love, as I say, everything with David. Alma in the cafe in the 80s and 90s as well. What a double act they were.
A quite young thing back in the day. And, when her leaving storyline was fascinating with her having that vision of Richard Hillman. I mean, again, though, that was something that happened to her. Like, she didn't make it happen.
I love the stuff with Lewis
I mean, she
Archer
dreamt
as
it,
well.
but-
I mean, we made a whole video of top 50 Gale moments. There's
Top
is a
50.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't, was it? It was an A to Z actually of Gale. So there was an awful lot to say about her, but
She's done lots of stuff. She's
okay.
like I said, like compare her to some of the other characters on here, and I know probably a lot of people are shouting Emily, because Emily's still on the list. But actually, even back in their early days, I think that Emily was a more interesting character than Gale, because you were invited to make fun of her. She was a silly mouse.
Yeah.
She was a timid, but she played into it, and there's some really hilarious, very early scenes with Emily playing into that role. Arlene Derbyshire was fantastic at playing this timid little girl who really fancied her boss, but was too Christian and prim to do anything about it.
She actually stayed in the show just a bit longer than Gale, didn't she? Because she was in it for 52, 53 years in total.
I think Emily, Emily definitely fell off towards the end as far as getting given really important stories, and she certainly didn't ever have the family that Gale's got to keep her going. I think as a person, as a character, she is really interesting. Like, if you wanted to make so like I'm saying, if you're writing a novel, okay, very often the point of view character is going to be the boring one, because you want people to identify with them. You don't want to throw people off of, or make them unlikable or quirky or anything, because it's also exhausting to write a story about somebody like that, because people don't necessarily agree or understand what their choices are, unless that's the point of the story, right? But Emily is the sort of really great colourful character you'd add into like almost any book. I can imagine her being in, like Agatha Christie or something. Like, she's such a classic. Funny. I think she's great.
I do as well.
I think if you
having seen,
think so, it's
we've
you
seen
haven't seen enough of her.
We've seen more of early Gale. Who are we talking about? Emily than early Gale, and maybe that's kind of colouring.
Maybe.
I just think it feels wrong for Emily to come higher than Gale in this list, when you can reel off so many important Gale stories, but not so many with Emily. And I think that a Coronation Street, alternate universe Coronation Street with no Gale would be a worse show than an alternate Corrie universe with no Emily.
But what are you imagining? Like, that Gale never existed, or that somebody else took her place?
No, if Gale wasn't in the show, if that character wasn't in the show, it would
would
be
just happened to someone else.
No, Gale and her stories weren't in the show then. If you were just,
Yeah, but her stories
Thanos
aren't
snapping everything to do with
point,
Gale out of the programme.
My point is that it wasn't actually her story, a lot of it. It was just stuff that happened to other people. And she was like our POV character. But
I think that Emily managed to get by, and again, not disparaging Emily, I think she managed to get by being a kind of side character, a background character. She really didn't have that many big stories of her own, did she? Things happened to Emily. What was she the lead character in? I'm sure there's a few. You could say that for Gale.
No,
though.
that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, Gale had loads and loads of stories, but Emily, as a person to watch,
I don't know. We might have to have a bit of a scrap about these two later.
Like, if you don't get what I'm saying and you don't know why I would say this, I think you need to watch some early episodes. And I don't know if they're all available.
No, they're definitely not all available.
But Emily was just a joy to watch. Her scenes, she was just hilarious, and I don't think you get that. Like, I remember watching it. If you'd asked me to rank them, say what, 6 years ago,
pre-pandemic,
I would have gone, oh, she's just a boring old lady, because she was really, but the same way that Betty was a bit of a boring old lady, and I'm sorry, but that they didn't really give her a lot to do. She was just a grumpy lady. But having watched her early years now,
Emily had a lot
more.
She has a lot going for her with her relationship with Mr. Swindley at Gamma Garments, didn't she? There's a lot of comedy that's come out of that, but there's also an awful lot of the 70s that we haven't seen, and she's still a bit of a blank era for me. Let's come back to these two. You said Audrey, quite controversially earlier.
Yeah, all of these are going to be controversial. These are all solid characters.
Are you putting Audrey closer to the top spot than Gale, or does she go below Gale?
I don't know. What do you think?
It's really hard to tear them apart, isn't it?
She's even a sidekick to Gail, isn't she, really?
She is. She is.
I mean, she's
got more of a personality to her, hasn't she?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly my point about Gail.
But you just because you don't have a huge personality, it doesn't mean that you don't get high up. I think that
yes, it does.
I think that Audrey is beloved by many. She's also been in the show for what? Is she 40 years, 50 years? I've kind of lost track with this, but
what about
because
Alf?
she lives away from the street. I think that it's harder for her to be an integral part of it, but sometimes you like the characters that don't live there, because when they swan in, it's like, oh, guest starring.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite the same with that for Audrey, and she did, of course, live on the street for a little bit with Elf before moving off to Grasmere Drive. But I couldn't name as many iconic Audrey stories, although she was still brilliant with Archie Shuttleworth in the Richard Hillman storyline when she was determined that there was something fishy going on with him and nobody else would believe her. Absolutely fantastic. The Lewis Archer saga. Just seeing her with Alf and trying to get him to part with as much cash as she could whilst he basically had his wallet under lock and key. They made a really fantastic to watch odd couple.
This is really hard. This is really hard because all of these characters are only here because we voted them. The top three, but in order to justify you putting them this side of the board, you have to then slag them off.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want to slag off anybody here. Corrie, Audrey is a Coronation Street icon. I think I might put her. I'd probably put her just below Gail, just because of Gail being more of a main character.
What about Alf? Because Alf feels
like he could be lower.
Like a sidekick to Audrey, he's a sidekick to Gail.
But don't forget, Alf was in the show right from the very beginning, wasn't he? 1961, I think, that he was in, and he lasted all the way to the millennium. Yeah, he was definitely a background character in the early days, but there was still a good, 40 years, 35, 40 years of Alf on the show. He was beloved, wasn't he? He was like your lovable grandpa kind of character, especially as the years went on. I thought that just his skin flintedness was, like I was saying, really enjoyable to watch. It's not too dissimilar from Derek in some ways, in his kind of pomposity and single-mindedness about, well, of course we got to do this because that's the most logical and thrifty way of doing things, I suppose.
If this was, I'm missing Annie and Jack on here.
Yeah, we got no Annie and Jack, have we? Didn't quite make it through. I'm thinking that Alf, sadly, he was taken before his time, wasn't he? I'd love for him to have stayed a little bit longer. I love the rivalry with Fred Elliott for Audrey's affections. I love that he still features a little bit in the show because we got his picture on Audrey's counter, haven't we, in the salon? He's a Corrie legend that won't be forgotten. But yeah, he doesn't stand out quite the same way as some of the other Corrie icons do to me, and I think living away from the street for some of it, and the fact that he was sporadic in appearances for some of the early years, has got something to do with that. I'd put him fairly low down. I think as well, I'm sad to say that Abby's probably got to be low down as well. She's, looking at who we've got on this list here, she's one of, if not
the newest character.
Yeah, the newest character. And how long's she been in the show? 10 years or so now, maybe just a bit under that. I don't think she's quite earned a place alongside some of the Corrie icons that are there. I think personally to us, we really love her. I remember when Sally Carman first appeared on the show, she was one that straight away we were like, Corrie has got to keep her. There's something special.
Out of obscurity, didn't we?
We totally.
We absolutely casted her as a good actress from watching her in Coronation Street.
There's some characters that within their opening scene, you've got something special here, and Sally Carman Dattine, as she is now, is the absolute. She's the tippity top of Corrie actresses, I believe, on Coronation Street. I used to say that you could put Abby in a scene with anyone, and that scene would automatically be outstanding. I don't think that's the case so much now, and it's not necessarily because of Abby. Maybe it's just some of the characters that she's gets involved with. I'm not completely sold on her and Kevin as a relationship. I think maybe he grounds her, and she needs it as a recovering addict. If she had somebody that was, you know, similar to her and was always wanted to go off on the razz or what have you, I don't think that would be good for her. So Kevin, in his very dull old mannish state, is great for her in some ways, but it doesn't make captivating TV. I'm also not loving the way that she's making googly eyes at Carl Webster at the moment, I have to say.
Hussy.
I think that sadly she's been a victim of Ian McLeod's let's pile misery on top of a character because by gosh he can cry, and she's not necessarily come out as strongly as I might have hoped that the character would go, 3-4 years ago. Don't get me wrong, again, I still absolutely adore her, but she doesn't feel as iconic as some of these other characters that we've got here.
There's not as much room in Corrie anymore for people to I think.
Would you put her? Would you be happy with her going in the bottom half?
Yeah, I sadly was thinking that, like, even again, it's one of these things. If you'd asked us like 2 years ago, probably would have really argued to get her higher up.
Maybe
the character's coasted a little bit, and some of the stuff that made her so cool and likeable was like her rescuing everybody, and she hasn't done that for ages.
She hasn't. Well, no, Mason. Come on, give it 4 months. She helped him. She gave him a less miserable death than he would have had she not been there. We've actually got 10 on the board here, so it might be possible if you want to have a go at trying to rank these.
Because I actually think...
Have you got some more that you think deserve to be in the bottom 10 here?
I'm going to say controversially, Blanche and Jack.
No way. We can't put Blanche. Not a chance. People will be having our guts for garters. It's
not there.
Some people are going to be putting Blanche in the top spot.
Everybody's
if not
going
the top 5.
Everyone's got their own opinion about stuff.
I cannot have her.
I'm not doing it for other people.
No, I know, but we said we're going to have some compromises here. We said that there'd be some arguments. But looking at who's here, I think that Blanche is a more iconic, beloved character than any of these other ones.
Blanche was at the time. In the last 5 years of Blanche's character, she was like a joke machine, wasn't she? She was a one-line put-down machine.
She was.
And she had depth. She definitely did have depth. And,
she did have depth.
Maggie Jones.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal. She was a great performer. Really, like, you knew that this lady was hurting, and so she was lashing out at everybody and just being judgmental and rude. And she was so seminal also to the characters of Deirdre, Tracy, and a little bit of Amy when she was younger. She's really great, but like I said, I think that a lot of what she did was just making sarcastic comments. But people don't like it when I do that. Why does she get a free ride on it?
No, sorry. I think out of all characters on Coronation Street, Blanche would be the one. Blanche is the most quotable. If you're going to make a book of Coronation quotes, Street quotes from one character, Blanche would be the number one there.
Oh, definitely. The writing
that counts for something.
Amazing.
I loved the little short-lived relationship that she had with Archie.
It's a bit sad.
I thought that...
Don't you think?
What was
it's
sad?
A bit tragic.
What is?
Well, she fancied him and he wasn't really that.
Was
he?
I can't remember what she did to spurn him, but it worked anyway. But
what do you mean? She didn't spurn him. He spurned her.
No, sorry, yeah, to make him spurn her. She messed up in some way. I can't remember what she did. But when he did dump her, it was gutting, and I loved the occasions where where she would kind of make you weep because you loved her, and then when that hardened front fell because she was just a frail old woman at the end of the day.
I'm happy for her to be more in the middle.
Oh,
she doesn't have to be in the bottom 10.
She can't be in the bottom 10.
Oh, whatever.
She absolutely can't be.
And Jack, because I think Jack is just a shadow of Stan. And a really good one.
See, that's interesting that Stan Ogden, we haven't picked him up yet. Because he was in the show for 20 years or so, from the mid-60s to the mid-80s. And I would say that in some ways, who was the character that we were talking about before? Raquel hasn't completely stayed in the Corrie zeitgeist. I would say that Stan Ogden
has completely been forgotten.
He's totally been forgotten. He didn't make it through on the listener vote either. I don't think that he
goes
should
higher
be
to
ending
me
that high
than Jack does. Because I think there's nothing that Jack did that Stan hadn't already done.
I don't know about that. Jack did play away and Stan didn't. Stan was
had a go.
Stan was more of a real layabout, but also a bit of a caperer and a get rich quick kind of funny episode of the week kind of character. Whereas Jack, he did want an easy life. He did also like just staying around in front of the TV and in the same way that Stan did. But
what's your argument?
I don't really know.
You're just agreeing with me.
I just.
You're just telling me I'm wrong, but saying everything I've exactly the same as way as I would say it. Like the partnership with Stan and Hilda is just legendary. Everybody remembers Hilda. I don't know why Stan isn't as remembered, but
I know
I think
she only lasted another couple of years.
I think it's because of her hairstyle, seriously, and her singing, and the fact that I also think that
the Ogdens were very much a gotta love the underdog kind of characters, weren't they? And I know Jack and Vera were the underdogs to some extent.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And but then they won a load of money and got the Rovers. So
there's a lot to be said also about comics of like the 80s and 70s and 80s, like taking the mick out of some of these characters and turning them into mainstream comedy tropes, like, you know, with Les Dawson and Mavis, and I think loads of people, like Hilda, I think really created that trope of the colours in the hair, silly, like fishwife kind of person, and Stan was an important part of her character, so he needs to be higher. I mean, Vera's not on here. And I think that Jack was a likeable guy. I'm just saying that Stan did it first, and he did it better as far as I'm concerned, because there was just more time to develop characters. I know loads of people really like him.
But both of them had very sad exits, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, Stan's obviously wasn't on screen because Bernard Ewan sadly fell ill before he could film anything towards the end. But Jack's episode where he passes away in his chair and then Vera comes and rescues him or whisks him away into the afterlife, that's an all-time classic Corrie death for me.
You're going to have to go outside and explain to Stan why you're not going to let him go high.
Yeah, we do have Stan's gravestone still in our garden.
We don't have anyone else's gravestone on this list, do we? That should tell you something.
It just doesn't feel right that a character as memorable and still iconic as Jack is lower than Stan.
Why? What are you doing? You're pandering.
I thought he was great in the Rovers, you know, with that, as I was saying before, that team with Bet and Betty
but I
and
never
Alec.
saw that.
I know, but it is still important. I loved his relationship with Tyrone, kind of being the surrogate dad to him. But then with Stan, you had Stan and Eddie, didn't you? It's a real tough one. I think whichever order they come, they're probably going to end up kind of close together, I suppose.
Stan, Eddie and Tilda were way better than Tyrone, Vera and Jack.
Different strokes for different folks. Horses for courses,
Whatever.
I say. Right, let's... Can we...
That's just my opinion. You can only go on your own opinion. I don't understand why you're like, oh, what will other people think? They've had their chance.
I
they've
think
got their
that
own
somewhere
list.
Towards the middle, we're going to be having Mavis Wilton here.
Yeah.
I love her. Thelma Barlow, recent guest on Conversation
I know.
Street, just saying.
Legend.
Proper legend.
Always getting bullied by Rita, who is also on this list.
Yes, until the end. I mean, I think that Rita's probably got to go higher than Mavis, if only through lack of sheer willpower and refusing to leave the programme. Not that I want her gone, but she's gone the distance, hasn't she? Mavis is just hilarious as the meek put upon sidekick to Rita's acid tongue for all those years. And then obviously the other half of the relationship between her and Derek. She was just absolutely hilarious, and I did like seeing how she evolved over the time in the show in the same way that Emily did. She didn't quite come out the other side as she still was quite a meek woman towards the end, wasn't she? Although she did stand up to everyone at Derek's funeral, I always remember. I loved the comedy scenes with the pair of them getting stuck at the airport, the antics with Des Barnes, the boat in the garden, Mavis being part of the waterbed scene as well, coming in and seeing Reg and Maureen over the floor, spilling everywhere. I think that, in terms of iconic status, Mavis is probably, to be honest, I would say got to go lower than the likes of Audrey and Gail. Don't you think?
Who?
Audrey and Gail, Mavis, lower than them.
Yeah.
Even Steve. Probably above Abby, I have to say. But I'm going to put Mavis a little bit lower down there. It feels like probably... like Carla maybe needs to enter the discussion
what about
here.
Fred?
Not in this world. We can't be talking about him yet.
But here's the elephant in the room.
Don't call him that. He's just a little overweight.
You heffalump. Pat Phelan. Now,
I
where
know.
are we going to put Pat Phelan?
Well,
Because
sadly, we do have Pat and Richard here, so this is the ultimate. We've got to rank one higher than the other in Corrie Villain Stakes. And while we're in the middle of Pat Phelan mania 5 years ago, is that any different to how we're feeling now? Now he's been 6 feet
dust
under
is
for...
settled. Now,
Yeah.
if you were in a field, okay, and Pat Phelan and Richard Hillman were going, come Michael, come here, and they're in two different places, who would you run to? That's the question.
I don't know. It's so tricky. Part of me wants to say Pat is my favourite, but then I don't know whether I'm just being contrary, because I know that the general opinion is that Richard Hillman is the most iconic Coronation Street villain ever. And that was what we were saying back when he was in the show. Like, has Richard found somebody that, he can go toe to toe with in the Corrie Villain Stakes? Has he met his match? And
can I say
it's
that
so tricky.
I think that no one has still shaken the iconic status of Richard Hillman.
I think in terms of iconic status and, show somebody on the street or, show some random people who maybe watch Corrie from time to time, Richard is gonna...
It's the prop, the catchphrase, and the fact that he came back even at Christmas was incredible. The song, the stunts...
Wait a minute, what song? Oh, the You and Me song.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't know that if you watched it now. But I think because Pat had such a prolonged reign of terror and so many murders and so much mayhem and mischief, that I don't think that any of them... There's no, one Pat scene. There's no one Pat... I think a lot of people probably would say the mill was his darkest moment.
What mill? The paper mill where he shot Andy and Vinny. Yeah,
but I mean, there's so many moments of Pat that I think that they're almost too ubiquitous to become iconic. Whereas I think that there's a few really big moments for Richard.
Mostly the deaths, wasn't there? You should have stayed at the party, Maxine, or you had whacking Patricia on the head with a shovel.
I don't think that's
the denouement of Richard and that classic two-hander with Gail. It was brilliant. So dark, and he kind of he set a trend for what later big bads in Coronation Street could be, and that's not to be sniffed at.
But as far as what I enjoyed more, and it was Pat, because Pat, and it's for all of the reasons that everyone hates him, or lots of people say that he ruined Corrie or didn't like his era. All of those reasons are why I really, really like it. I liked how long it went on. I liked him having Andy in the basement. I liked
every month that we got
there was some kind of crazy
keep
new
him on the
thing
show.
that he was getting up to, and it turns out he's dad, and then he he confronts her in by the pond, and now he's being tied up by Gary. And
you're right. Everything with Nicola was amazing.
There's all and him and Seb and the earring and the ladder and the whispering in people's ears.
Kate Oates struck gold
it was just
with
continual.
the casting and the whole story there. But both of these characters were very, very well rounded, weren't they? You got so many characters these days, and even some of the ones that are on the list here that weren't quite so in depth and multifaceted as you had with Pat, but he truly was a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde character.
But
then so was Richard, wasn't he? Because
to me, I think Richard of the two, I think Richard was not an inevitable villain, whereas Pat was always a villain from the very first moment you met him. He was doing over, was pretending to be bankrupt and he wasn't, and he's getting up to all kinds of stuff.
In a big mansion.
Yeah,
he came in as a bad guy, but Richard kind of fell into it. As a financial advisor, he was. You see, sorry to any financial advisors out there, but there's a bit of mistrust, raised against you, isn't there? Just like you're
not supposed to be.
You're handling people's money
from somebody you don't trust.
I think in Coronation Street, the characters who've got a bit of cash behind them
are villains.
Are villains, aren't they?
Are.
Because
middle class people are always suspicious on Coronation Street.
Yeah, but then you had Pat, who clearly was a working class kind of character who done good.
Yeah.
But I think it was the Scouse accent. It was it's really, really difficult. My heart is saying that I want to put Pat ahead, but my head is saying it's probably still got to be Richard. What are you?
I've explained what I think
but you
quite well in depth.
You haven't gone on the record and say which one should be higher, though.
Well, you can work it out from what I said.
Oh, go on, tell me straight.
Pat.
You want Pat at the...
Because I said... I literally explained why.
I didn't know. I thought you
Rewind it.
Oh, maybe I wasn't listening carefully. I thought you were going more for Richard then.
I was saying that I said, after all the things I said about Richard, I still enjoyed Pat's time on the show more.
I remember absolutely loving the Richard Hillman saga, but it was over and done with in like a year or two.
Faster than you would remember.
And there were so many legs, if you like, of the Pat Phelan one. It's and now we're going up a gear because this is about the flats, and now it's all about Andy in the basement.
This is scam
and now
era.
it's about
this is kidnap era.
Yeah. Whereas Richard, it was a kind of shortish story. Not as short as the likes of John Lindsay or so, but same as I said about Raquel, really bright, but not for as long. But some would say for sure that Pat overstayed his welcome. Not a bit of it, I say. I think Richard Hillman had the better exit, for damn sure.
Sadly.
I'll happily put Pat above Richard. That's absolutely fine for me. I don't know whether either of them are top 10 characters.
Isn't it funny how the way we're doing it is to take two characters and then decide which one's better than the other one?
I know, because
we still haven't decided. We're not necessarily.
No, we haven't decided about Stan and Jack. And are Pat and Richard going to be, toe to toe with each other, or are they going to have some people in between them?
Do you have any ideas about who you want to be in the top 5?
Yeah, I got some. We have been. I think this has just been the nature of it, and it's been like this almost every round of Corrieliminator. We've kind of started at the bottom and worked our way up to the top, haven't we?
Anyone.
We've not put
literally. We've
right. Okay.
Poor what's his face?
What?
Right, Derek.
Yeah.
Derek, this is his life, isn't
Sorry,
it?
Derek.
This is typical of his life.
It's so Derek.
Nobody except Derek and gone, right, he's last.
He is an icon, but bless him, he's last, isn't he?
Yeah.
Him in his giant paperclip topped car.
I think he'd understand.
I'm saying that I'm going to stand my ground and say there is no way that Hilda is not getting in the top 3 here. And I'm going to say the same with Bet. I'm not particularly saying in any particular order yet. I know my order, I think. But I need them to be in the top 3. I'm not even daring look at Gemma, see what expression she's got in her face at the moment. I would want Hayley to be towards the top 5 kind of place. I think that...
Run out of steam now.
Those are my 3 that I'm mostly set on, I'm going to say. It feels like David should be in the top 10 somewhere.
Yeah.
He kind of deserves a place
What
there.
about Ina Sharples?
She deserves a place in the top 10.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of top 5-ish. I don't love her as much as these three ladies here. I think that Becky lower down. Possibly, I mean, I would probably put Becky below the likes of Pat and Richard, to be honest. Maybe even Blanche. Rita, bless her. I don't love her as much as everybody else does. She's a very important presence on the street. I know I can't forget the many, many years when she was as sharp as a tack, but these days she has kind of sadly shuffled into the I'm just kind of coming in to have a bit of a chat with Rita or Jenny and Brian, then going back out again. It's been a long time since Rita has been a very, very important presence on the show. But hey, she's earned a decent semi-retirement.
I think at the 10,000th episode was kind of her last story.
Yeah, I would say so. She's had the odd bit here and there.
Pretty good way to end, even though you ruined.
As much, I think Elsie should be there in, maybe the top 5, definitely top 10. I'm getting nods from Gemma, nods of approval. That's good.
Yeah. Now, what about...
I don't think Carla deserves to be in there. I would personally have Carla below the likes of Jack and Stan and probably a few others, to be honest. But I know that she has been a favourite of yours in the past.
What about Deirdre? Now, what about Deirdre? Everybody loves Deirdre.
Everybody loves
Deirdre.
Yeah, I do love Deirdre. I don't think she is as iconic as Ina, or maybe she is more iconic than Elsie. Maybe she is. And I do wonder, I suppose a lot of Corrie fans wonder what ifs, because obviously the sad passing of Anne Kirkbride 10 years ago put a nail in the coffin of that character. And it only kind of, it just makes me wonder what would Corrie be like? What would she be like?
What would Ken be like?
I feel that Deirdre would still be in it. Yeah. I don't know. With Anne Kirkbride getting itchy feet? I doubt it, but I don't know. I'm just kind of putting ideas out there.
It would be really interesting. I think Ken would be completely different.
There'd be a whole lot of different these days, but we're not talking of what ifs. I think that she is a.
But you see what I mean when, compare her to Gail. Things happened to Gail. You said, "Oh, what would happen if Gail wasn't in it?" I think those things would have happened anyway. Whereas Deirdre, who was a catalyst for so many things, she's driven Ken mad. She's part of the reason why Ken's the way he is.
I think that if you look at Deirdre's...
And I'm not saying that he didn't deserve it, because he did.
If you look at Deirdre's last few years on the cobbles...
Well, you thought she was being...
She was starting
Gaelified.
To be Gaelified. She was starting to be used as too much of a figure of fun. She was starting to be a little bit dumb and a little bit silly. And I do worry and wonder, I suppose, would she have carried on in that kind of direction had she stayed in the show longer? So she was still, I wouldn't say she was in a prime when she was taken from us, but she was close to it. She was absolutely outstanding. I think that probable top 10 position for her. I don't think that Jenny is necessarily in the top 10. I just don't. I don't. And you know how much I love Jenny. And that's kind of a personal favourite. And I think that, my love of all things Sally Ann Matthews sometimes clouds my judgment of Jenny. I think Jenny's brilliant. I think that she was badly underserved in the last couple of years at the Rovers. She was landlady for a good old stint, but never felt like she really got a fair crack of the whip of it. And despite the length of time that she was there, she's hilarious, she's bolshy, she's infectiously I just love her. But and yes, she's an iconic character, but I think taking all personal feelings aside from her, I don't know whether she's there in the same way as some of these others towards the bottom end of the top 10.
Having a massive
Save
gap.
me here, Gemma. What are you thinking about Jenny?
Having a massive gap doesn't help, because we didn't see a lot of her between. she was in it as a sort of teen, wasn't she?
Yeah.
An older teen, and then she buggered off to France.
Yeah, buggered off in the early 90s, came back for a short stint in 93, I think it was, and then it was another 12 years until she became a mainstay on the show again, and that's got to count against her. She didn't have the sticking power, did she?
Oh my god. She went off and enjoyed her life. How dare she?
I don't know how much, because I must probably have seen all the 80s episodes that she's been in. I don't know how much of a big character she was there, because she was just the teen. She was, the story was Rita and Alan then, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And Jenny was the daughter, the daughter that was estranged from the dad, brought together, because she was obviously a foster daughter of Rita's at first, and she had her own little adventures with Martin and Patrice in France and some of the others.
Do you think she can speak
Steph
French?
Barnes with the Pomme de Light promotion.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether there were what we could say iconic Jenny stories back in her first stint. It was in the rejuvenation of Jenny, if you like, from 2014, 15, I can't remember, onwards, that made her into one of our favourite characters.
How would you say pomme de light in French?
Just exactly like that, I think.
Bonjour, je voudrais une pomme de light.
Pomme de Light, yeah.
Pomme de light, s'il vous plaît. Right.
The baby dangling on the balcony, brilliant. I loved everything to do with the sinkhole.
I mean, Michael did it first, but she did it more stylishly.
Not me, Michael Jackson. I
Of
think
course
you're
I mean
talking
Michael
about. I loved the romance with Johnny. That was one of the last long-term romances that I just absolutely adored. That journey from cleaner to factory bosses. Misses the wedding, adored it.
Three bosses, misses.
That everyone wants to be the factory
job.
Bosses misses.
Well, that's
Alma
Lisa Swain.
Yeah, that's true. Lisa Swain is the new Jenny in some ways. I think that
They both really desperately want to get married to a partner who doesn't seem to really
brilliant drunk.
bothered one way or the other.
I love everything. I love the relationship that she had going with Gemma for quite a while, although that kind of disappeared off, didn't it, for a bit. I love how kind of conniving that she could be sometime. Everything with her and Daisy was fab.
Her and Daisy was great.
But
Yeah.
that being said,
Yeah.
I don't think... What have you done
Sorry,
there?
I've knocked the rovers off.
I it doesn't feel right to put her above some of the characters that we've got there. We can't let our personal
Yes, you can.
adoration for Sally Ann Matthews
This is what this is.
rocket her to the top.
This is what this is. What is it then?
It's a mixture.
It's not a list of what you think you should say.
It is. It's a mixture.
No, it isn't. I'm
It's
not making it that like. I've said a lot of things on this that I wouldn't really say normally, because people will get annoyed with you if you say some stuff, because almost everybody on this list is someone's favourite character.
I know.
So
apart from Derek.
Sorry, Derek. But you can't.
Write in if you're Derek's number one fan.
I thought it was quite interesting because Ken didn't get through the public vote, did he?
No, he didn't.
Now,
and
it's really fascinating because I think Ken is a lot more of an interesting character than.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is it on the mug? It says something like, "I happen to think I'm quite an interesting guy."
I'm quite a nice guy, isn't it? Yeah.
And
I happen to think I'm a really great guy. That's it, a great
yeah.
guy.
He suffered a lot from in middle age, didn't he? From being a curmudgeon and but as he's gotten older, I think
happens
he's got
to all
cheekier.
teachers, I'm afraid.
He's got cheekier and a bit
Yeah,
more...
he has. He's a bit more free spirited. I think he's captured
Maybe,
that little bit of William Roachness.
Or maybe Deirdre dying kind of made him realise that you've got to, live your life.
I mean, he was separate from Deirdre for quite a while. I mean, after they had
but
that
they were back
split up
together when.
Yeah, for sure. Ken's story as the person that never wanted to stay in Coronation Street but just couldn't get away from the place is just... It's the story of Coronation Street, really, isn't it? It's
fascinating. He's a fascinating character, but he hasn't had great stories, I would say, in the last 20 years, right? I'd say it's only when Kate Oates started making the Barlows bigger that I think there's been a renaissance of Ken. She
has worked wonders for Ken, and he's kept on going. He's
blossomed.
had the odd weird moments, like there was a bit of a romance with Audrey going at one point, which didn't really feel right to me. But I loved it when he was together with Claudia.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like it was wrong, and that it was, turning his back on Deirdre. It was just a new little chapter. I have enjoyed the stuff that he's had with Cassie. I I'm not too sure about the fact that he's still living with Steve McDonald. Those two don't particularly work too well with each other. But the Ken and Daniel relationship, they are the ultimate Corrie father and son at the moment.
All
as
the
far as I'm
revelations
concerned.
about
A real
that
trip of the
with
old block.
Denise and everything was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I loved again with Deirdre, the story with her and Mike and Ken in 1983. That love triangle is iconic for a reason. And if you haven't seen that story, I do urge you go back, watch the first 3 months or so of 1983 because it's short, but my God, it's one of the best Corrie examples of a fair story that there is.
Was one of it was the biggest fictional story in the country.
Yeah. Brilliant performances. That scene where he pushes her up against the doorstep scene, it was brilliant.
And it's interesting also that Ken, I would say also, and Hayley have both made, headlines as their fictional characters.
Yes, yeah, for sure. I loved it when he had his affair with Wendy. Deirdre throws him out, and
I liked him with Wendy in the barge.
And that was Martha in the barge, you mean? Yeah.
I
loved it when he was a little bit borderline obsessive stalker Ken in the early 90s, where he wouldn't move away from the street. He was living in the corner shop flat, desperate to get back with Deirdre. And I don't know whether she had a restraining order put on him, whether that was such a thing back then, but he kind of needed it. And then
back in the day, the police would just say you should be flattered.
And then there's that scene, that one New Year's Eve, where he's popping pills and to try and end it all, and then Bet Lynch comes and saves him, or Bet Good, what's her name, Bet Gilroy, sorry, as she was back then. There's so many brilliant
Gilroy,
Ken,
his was.
So many brilliant Ken moments. He is iconic. I think he's got to be in the top 10. I think he's got to be.
Yeah, I do agree. And he's grown on me so much, and it's funny how boring he has been over the years.
But he's been consistently boring in a way, and that makes him interesting. But
he's not.
I can't think of much. I can't think of much he's done, or I'd say, oh, that's a bit out of character for Ken.
Yeah.
It seemed like a very natural evolution for him, and he's now in the stages of, how long have I got left? I'm in my 90s. I'm just going to live life to the fullest as I can. I don't care what anybody else thinks. Not the same way as Blanche, where she would just tell everybody they were arses. Ken's still granddadish in that sense. But I think that he should be in the top 10. We haven't sorted Dennis Tanner yet, Gemma, who I know is a bit of a favourite of yours, and Fred Elliott, who is also a favourite of mine, and a lot of other people. I think you got to agree.
You always do this.
You got to agree.
You always say Gemma, you have to agree with me
that Fred Elliott is more of an icon than Dennis Tanner for the Corrie viewing masses.
Don't care. I like the way you argue. It's very interesting because you always say you must agree with me, and I always
you must.
My perspective is always it doesn't matter if you agree with me because this is what this is the fact.
Dennis Tanner is your one character who you won't.
Do you think
back down?
Are you trying to say I've got
a
blind spot?
Look where I've put Raquel. Look how low down I've put her.
That's your business. It's not my fault. You're not backing your girl.
Oh right.
I tell you what though, imagine a world where Raquel and Dennis were the same age. What a perfect couple.
They would be actually, wouldn't they?
They would be brilliant.
There was a little bit of, who was he end up with? Jenny? I think there was a bit of Jenny in Raquel. Where would you think that fairly, in a way that's not going to cause too much friction between you and me and our lovely
I'm not
listeners,
bothered about it.
where would you think that
friction.
Dennis should go?
I'm not one of those little, what are they called? Those...
A stirrers,
those cars where you have to take them back lots of times.
Wind them up and then put them back.
And then they go... Vroom!
Okay, look, just tell me straight. Where are you thinking for Dennis Tanner?
Top 10.
Okay. Anywhere particular in the top 10 you're thinking of here?
Maybe 1.
No, don't say that. Dennis Tanner is not the number one Coronation Street character of all time.
I love
and I will
Dennis.
not have this on a shared list
You will not have this.
No, we can't.
I'll take the mask off you. Don't tell me.
if you want Dennis Tanner to go to the top, you come right
I've
over
got
here
to
and get in
appear.
this picture.
I've
You've
got
got
to
to show
appear
your
on camera.
face on camera
All right.
and drag him there yourself.
Back down then.
I will let you say your case for Dennis.
I've said it a million times.
But we haven't on this episode. Not everyone's watched our Dennis Tanner character profile from a couple of weeks ago.
We only just sorted him, didn't we?
Yeah, fairly recently.
And we only just did
if
his
you
character
can't be
profile.
bothered,
Michael,
give me a bit.
I've gone on about it. It feels really boring for me to keep going on about how much I love Dennis Tanner. Everyone's heard it a million times. He's cheeky. He's funny. He was so charismatic. He's a little scamp. He got up to so many interesting things. He was one of the core cast that was left when Corrie was on strike, and so he got up to all kinds of shenanigans, including putting seals in people's baths and putting a monkey in Elsie's sink.
A good gorilla in the sink, yeah.
He was just, but he was a bit of an underdog because his scams and schemes never really worked out.
He was such a joy.
He was so earnest and so 100% himself, and just
he was just a real fun kind of Jack the Lad, and thank goodness they changed his character, because he was going to be a bit of a bad lad at the beginning, wasn't he? And that kind of turned into how Billy Walker was, I suppose, because of Philip Lowry's brilliant comedy chops. He was absolutely superb, and what a revelation to us. They were a brilliant mother and son combo, and it was something that we had no idea about when we went to watch the DVD episodes for the first time in the 60s, and it was just a joy and a revelation to us. And every time he's a character, like I was saying with Abby, that when he walked into a scene, you know you're in for a good time. And I don't know whether he went off the boil a little bit, because we haven't seen a lot of him still, but he did come back into the show after 43 years, is it, off?
Yeah,
to become a bit of a homeless drifter in 2009.
That's kind of sad to me, because I prefer to remember him when he was younger.
I do too,
because it's a bit more sad. It was a bit of a more tragic end to him, you know. I mean, apart from getting run over in an urn, but you know, him running off with people and clearly not doing that well in life after. Yeah, you kind of would hope that he would.
They didn't treat him too well, did they?
No.
Okay, so he's going to be somewhere in the top 10-ish. I can't say where yet.
10-ish, you say?
10-ish, yes. I think that Fred Elliott.
So you were saying that you think Fred Elliott should be higher than.
I think he should
Dennis.
Probably higher. I don't think I'm going to win this battle.
You said he should be higher than Dennis, but who do you think in the top? I mean, we still haven't.
How many have we actually got in our?
We haven't even done any. We need to do the top.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got kind of 9 that are loitering around the top 10 at the moment.
What it would be really good to do, and I know you can't do this on the software that we've got on this thing, it would be snap to grid and then see where they all go.
Just give it a shake and see where they end up.
Well, do you not think that we should just do the bottom 20, because we haven't done that?
I love Fred.
I mean, bottom 10.
John Savardin, R.I.P., died last year, was absolute joy to the street. He came in as a massive lech, but everybody still just were magnetised to the screen when he was on. He was such a character performer, wasn't he? Because John Savardin was nothing like Fred Elliott, or at least in voice in real life. He was at his A game 100% of the time in that role, whether he was kind of sitting at the bar, you know, leaning against the bar with his fag in his hands, or whether he was having the lovely family moments with Ashley, or whether he was shouting at babies or budgies, whether he was falling into sinkholes in Audrey's garden, or
fighting roundheads.
Exactly, yeah, Cavaliers and Roundheads with Roy. He was just there was never a dull moment with Fred.
I remember when he was crying on the sofa. What was he crying about? Getting
dumped by Maureen.
Yeah. He was
heartbreak for him.
Just wallowing. I don't think anyone's wallowed as well as he has.
No, and this is the thing, because he was a comedy character, wasn't he? He was so full of life and joy most of the time.
Yeah.
So on those moments where he did, you know, fall into the pits of despair for whatever reason, it made it all the more
poignant.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've got some rough places for pictures now, and I don't know whether people have stopped listening already because
How long has this been going?
We've been going, hour and a bit or so. I don't know. I've lost track. There's people. We've probably lost people already who are saying, "How dare you put Derek Wilson at number 30?
Fine.
I'm not going to listen to it."
But you can do your own score. And also,
this is the thing, listeners. You have got to go and
controversial.
vote in the listener poll that we can't even agree on ourselves, so it doesn't matter if you don't agree with us either. Are we gonna? It feels so wrong to have Gail so low down the list. Honestly, it does. I mean, we've got Becky McDonald above Gail.
Okay, but all right. Listen to me here, right? You can't be influenced by what other people think or feel bad about putting somebody if that's what you think. Because, for example, when we were doing our list, we were like, put Carla at the top 3, and we were like, obviously she's going to be top 3, the listener vote, right? She didn't even get top 5.
I know.
So you can't even predict what people are going to think.
Right. I'm just gonna let me do a little bit of just going from the gut sort of rankings here, and don't interrupt me, but you're welcome to do any adjustments. No, I'm just saying. Let me. You'll ruin my flow and my mojo, but you're very welcome to do some adjustments afterwards. Is that a fair deal? I am the mouse handler here,
Michael. You act like I talk over you all the time.
No, you're not. I need to be in the zone when I'm doing this. I
talk over you now. I've got told off about it.
No,
so,
right.
But I don't get a word in edgeways.
So I'm putting Derek in at number 30. Then I'm going to have. I'm thinking like maybe Abby should come at 29.
I'm not allowed to say anything.
No, you are. Yeah, sorry, I did say you weren't, didn't I? Okay, Abby at 29. Right, I'm gonna go. I'm feeling like Carla should be fairly low down. And I know she's a proper icon, but I'm thinking Carla at 28. Then I'm gonna go with Alf. I'm gonna go with Betty. I'm gonna go with Raquel, Liz, Mavis, Steve, Emily. That's kind of who I'm thinking of. What do you reckon to this at the moment? So I've got Derek at 30, then Abby, Carla, Alf, Betty, Raquel, Liz, Mavis, Steve, and Emily. Happy to do a bit of jiggling if there's anyone there that you think is outrageously positioned.
I wouldn't have done it myself the way you've done it.
Yeah. Any obvious changes? Because I'm up for haggling. Do you think it's fair that Abby and Carla?
Abby and Carla are quite low.
It's a really tough one, isn't it? Because I think that as much as I adore Abby, we said earlier how I don't think that she's completely gone past that line into proper Corrie icon status.
I definitely would have.
Even though she's one of the highlights of Corrie at the moment, still for me.
I definitely think that I would have put Gail, Audrey, and Jack in this bottom 10.
Who would you not have in the bottom 10 then?
Good question.
There's a top bunch there.
They are really good. Yeah, this is really difficult.
Do you want to move Carla up a bit higher? Is she going to go higher than Alf? Because he's definitely loves Alf. I think she's higher
than Alf and Betty. I think Betty's below Alf.
You reckon? Okay,
yeah.
So if we're looking like, so we're going to have Carla at 26. We'll have Betty at 28. Alf at 27, like that. It doesn't feel right to have Carla much higher, only in amongst the other legends who are here. So if you're saying that Audrey and Gail should be in the bottom 10,
yeah,
that just doesn't completely sit right with me.
All right then, put.
Do you want to move any
Audrey...
of these others?
No.
Do you want to? Who are we having? Are we going to have Audrey and Gail close together?
Yeah.
Are they going to be neck and neck?
Yeah.
Gail came into this world with Audrey and she's going out as well, or are we sticking Jack in between? Who are you putting higher, Gail or Audrey?
Well, Gail's higher than Audrey.
I think we kind of said that earlier, didn't we? Of Gail just a bit, just got the edge on Audrey maybe, and then Jack higher than Gail. He was lovable, but maybe some people didn't like kind of the lovableness of Jack, because he started off as the Jack the Lad sort of character and a bit of a schemer, not a schemer in a villainous kind of way, but he was always trying to get one over Vera and get off to naughtiness behind her back. But then he and Vera kind of settled into the cozy old grandparent kind of image in their later years, didn't they? Which not everybody liked. Do you think that Jack should be lower or higher? I still feel that Gail should be higher than Jack.
Okay.
But do you want to have Gail at 17? Sorry, Gail at 18, Jack at 19, Audrey at 20. Does that look right? Or should Audrey be higher?
I would have put Blanche where Audrey is.
That really doesn't sit right with me. I'm letting you have Dennis Tanner in your top. I think that Blanche should be a lot higher.
Yeah, but you're coming at it from the perspective of this person should be a high number, like arbitrarily, because you think they're a good character, right? But listen to what I'm saying. And you're also going, oh, they shouldn't be in a list of top characters. They should never be so and so number, but why? This is like the we got.
I just
30 characters out of 300.
I always enjoy
on this list.
I always enjoy watching Blanche. I don't think that Blanche's character had any kind of a downhill turn. I thought she was always, like I said about Fred earlier, always at her A game. Yes, she might not have been as much of a deeper character as some of those others, but she was one of these characters that didn't really matter in my eyes. I think that Blanche needs to be higher than Stan, for example. Right, as much as I love him, I feel that probably Gail should be higher than Stan. No, you're getting a shake in the head from Gemma. But Stan's got to come soon.
You know how we try to describe characters and we say, oh, this is a main character, this is a side character, this is a comedy character. I think you could also describe characters as constituent parts of a meal, okay? So some characters are the meat or the protein, right? Some characters are the vegetables. Like they're always there, you got to have them, but you're not excited about them. And some characters are like the spice or the seasoning, and you can't have too much of them, but they're what makes the meal exciting to eat. So I would say that someone like Blanche is like a spice.
Yeah.
Like she's like having a paprika. You can if you just try to eat paprika, it's going to be horrible. And the reason why you like her is because you've got the meat and the vegetables. She's nothing by herself. That's my argument.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But obviously, when she's in a meal, she's the best bit of it. Like that's the bit that makes you want to eat. But without the substance, do you see what I mean? Like some of these characters are meat, aren't they? These are all meat characters, a lot of them. I definitely think Mavis and Derek are vegetables.
But are they parsnips? There are some prime cuts.
But you see,
here.
But this is why we're having trouble, because we're comparing
it's apples and oranges in some cases.
Three different sorts of characters, really. I mean, you can add in all kinds of different, because I think villains are another completely different sort of character.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, what would a villain be? The ice cream. Like you don't have it every time.
Right. Okay. Look, we're kind of. I don't know whether Becky deserves to be this high. Now, when we started the podcast, Becky had been gone 5 months or so. I'd have loved to have podcasted while Becky was still a main character, because we both absolutely adored her. She was at one point
my all-time favourite character.
But then so was Carla.
Yeah, I know.
Becky and Carla have both been on your favourites list.
This is why I say you shouldn't have favourites. Didn't I say that? And everyone mocks me about it.
How long was Becky in the show? 6 years or so? So she had a very short time there. But she was...
I said that before, and you said I was being stupid.
No. I can be contrary. I think that she was just... Well, we haven't really talked about what we liked about Becky. I just loved her kind of in-your-faceness, brashness. I think
she was a gobby. She was a proper made her life difficult through her own misadventures kind of a character. Like you felt
she went on a rampage with a crowbar at one point, didn't she?
She just always ruining her own life. Like the time she got drunk when she was getting married. Having a feud with a police officer.
I just love how she came into the show as she was a homeless character, wasn't she? She was an old friend of Kelly Crabtree's, and then she had a bit of a story where there was, I think, a fling with Lloyd or something, I can't remember. But she had a really kind of slow start. But I think once Roy and Hayley got their claws into her, they just worked magic on this character. And every young blonde waif that's come into the show since has kind of lived in Becky's shadow.
This is what I'm saying about Jack and Stan.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough.
But you see, now you see the analogy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But do you think
Oh,
she's
it's
the
really-
OG waif?
Probably. I mean,
Who came before
you know,
her?
you had
Fizz?
Fizz, didn't you? Yeah, and I suppose Jenny a long time before then as well. Though
She
I wouldn't
wasn't
say that she
Roy
was
and
ever
Hayley's.
particularly waifish. But there you go. Neither was Fizz. But Becky was a proper rags to riches type character. But I don't know
she wasn't
whether
the first foster child who was a tearaway turned.
well, she
good.
wasn't a foster child.
No,
was she?
all right.
I know what you
waif,
mean. Oh yeah.
A stray.
Yes.
But I think you're right. It's just to call her the archetypal one that everyone's trying to recapture that magic that she had.
I think it would.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think.
But
so.
even people like Kelly and Lauren
I
are
think
trying to be a Becky.
I think that Rita's got to be higher than her just to respect the Queen.
You got to put some respect on her name.
Yeah.
Okay, but again,
is Becky more iconic than Blanche and Stan and Gail and Jack? I don't know.
It's tricky because the further removed I get from her, the more
I know.
I get. Like, what was the hype for again?
I'm feeling the same.
But I trust my judgment at the time.
Trust you get at the time.
That I remember loving her and thinking she was, you know, the bee's knees.
Some of these characters, and I'm not including Stan in there, have still, you know, they're there, aren't they, in the Corrie Hall of Fame. I don't know whether Becky is.
That is so weird, but I think you're right, and I think that there's something about that era that she was in.
That's
The sort of early 2000s.
yeah.
I think there were so many new people, and Corrie was trying to do so many different things that I think a lot of stuff got lost in the mix.
So do
What do you think?
we want to stick with our gut and keep her in the middle there, or do we want to recognise that she has lost some of that sparkle in the year since departing the programme and shunt her down?
But no, I don't agree with pushing people down based on the fact that maybe their star has waned, because I mean you keep giving me crap about putting Dennis Tanner up high, but I'm telling you, Ina Sharples is long forgotten by most people.
No.
I think you're still running off 20 years ago when a lot of people would have remembered watching Ina.
Look,
but I don't think that's the case
We've
anymore.
been to the Coronation Street studios and they have got a giant
Of course
Ina
they do.
Sharples on the wall.
Of
there.
course
She's
they
still
do. Because they're Coronation Streets. If you were going to make... Right, if I said to you, right, Michael, we're going to make a range of limited edition Coronation Street icon T-shirts, right?
Yes.
And we're going to sell
good.
them. We're not giving them away. We're selling them. So you've got to make sure that people want them.
Yeah.
Would you put Ina Sharples on it?
I might do, yes.
You wouldn't sell
I'd
any.
certainly put Ina Sharples over Becky Granger.
I know, but... Okay, my point is that you're trying to judge things based on what you think other people think still.
Okay, look, we're not
We're not going to agree on whether this is a...
Where
This is not a democracy, but you think it is.
Where,
We've got a democratic vote.
where would you like to put Becky? Are you happy with her at 15, or are we going to shunt her down a little bit? It just feels a little bit wrong in my eyes to have her higher than the likes of Blanche and Gail. I might even put her above Jack.
She is above Jack.
I mean, but yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I might maybe put Blanche at 16, then 15, Stan at 16,
Okay.
Gail at 18, Gail at 17, Becky at 18. How's that
be
looking
like that,
for
are
you?
you?
I might be being like that, and that's, I still feel that's being a bit kind to Becky.
I think Becky... Oh...
What? No, say it. Say what you think.
And you know I'm not like that.
Okay. You never say what you think. You don't tell it like it is. Are we putting Rita here at number 14? Is she more iconic and beloved than Blanche?
I think so.
Okay, I'll happily do that. I think I've still got more love in my heart and soul for the likes of Jenny and Richard and Pat than I do for Rita. I think it's fair to say. But I would possibly go Jenny at 13, Richard at 12, Pat at 11.
I wouldn't put Fred in the top 10 myself.
Would you not?
No.
I think...
But that's your choice.
I think, okay. If we're kind of leaning partly towards characters that have touched our heart in special ways, then maybe Pat Phelan does deserve to be higher than Fred.
I think Fred should be...
Pat Phelan is an iconic Conversation Street character.
I think that Fred should be where Richard Hillman is now.
Okay, so we put in Pat at 10, Hillman at 11, and Fred Elliott at 12.
But it doesn't feel right to me to not have Richard Hillman and Pat Phelan in the top 10.
That doesn't bother me particularly. I think that, having characters who are villains being that close to a top 10, I mean, this is a Conversation Street list. I think there's some people that are going to be... It always has been to some extent. I think there's going to be some people that are going, what on earth are they doing there? They're not Corrie icons. They're just come in for short-term thrills and getting Corrie in the front of the soap mags and getting the awards. They don't deserve to be there.
They're just there to entertain people.
We have always said we love a good villain, and Hillman and Pat Phelan are the best of the best when it turns to Coronation Street villains, I think. What does that leave for the rest of our top 10? A mess.
Read out our finalists for the top 10.
We've just snuck Pat Phelan. And I can see people hating this, but I don't care. I love him. At number 10.
Why do you... when it's my opinion, you're like, oh, we should be a bit more think about what other people think. And when it comes to your opinion...
I just don't know that there's a right way of doing this. Right, so who we've still got left to sort. We've got Deirdre, Ina, we've got Dennis, we've got David, we've got Ken, Hayley, Bet, Hilda, and Elsie. So then, any particular lowies there for you?
Right, okay. Sadly... What were you going to say?
No, go on, say it. No, I wasn't.
Right, sadly for me, my two lowies here.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got 3 lowies.
That's all right. We need all the lowies we can get, otherwise we're going to be stalemate for the rest of the evening.
I think that Hayley, Ken, and Deirdre.
Hayley.
I know.
My beloved Hayley.
All right, fine. What you want?
I will say okay to Deirdre and Ken
because look at all the other people.
I know, but I really, really love Hayley. Who's higher about a Ken and Deirdre?
Well, that's a battle of the ages, isn't it? Ken is higher.
I think Ken's higher than Deirdre, just through pure staying power, and he was here first and all. I think he's more of an icon than Deirdre. I love Deirdre, but I think I've got more kind of cosy feels when I think of Ken and his whole era
life.
On the street.
I feel like I've watched him grow into a man.
It is. Coronation Street is the story of Ken Barlow, and it's not the story of Deirdre. But God, Deirdre was half an important part of that story.
Sexy specs.
Yeah, I'm happy to start putting in Dennis whenever you want to.
Yeah, whatever.
See, if it was me, looking at who we've got left, I would say Dennis here. Because of these utter icons that are left. And
do you know what I would even say, right? I would even
David's doing quite well there, isn't he?
I would even put Dennis over Elsie. Because Elsie...
I'll let you... I will agree to that. I will say I like Dennis.
About it?
No, I'm not. I'm making a compromise with you.
You're making a compromise like I've just walked into a trap.
No, I will shake your hand on that one.
No, what have I done wrong?
No, nothing. You're right. I hadn't really considered that, but I think when I'm thinking of... I think it's fair to say that in terms of pure iconic status, Elsie Tanner is clearly in the general school of thought a more iconic character than Dennis.
She was on a cover for the Smiths.
She is up. She's up there. She was Corrie legend. She was the Michelle Keegan of her day, wasn't she? She was a really integral part of Corrie in those early years, and a character that was an absolute joy to discover when we went back and watched those old episodes, because we didn't know a whole lot about her. But Pat Phoenix, utter star, and she.
We're not. Yeah, but.
She just brought so much sass and passion and life to the show.
I loved how sassy she was. She was just so sassy.
Yeah,
and saucy.
And saucy. She was and sarky, but she wasn't mean. She wasn't mean spirited, was she? She wasn't horrible. I love the arguments that she had with Ina, but I think that
how she stood up for herself.
Yeah. But I think in my heart, Dennis probably is higher than him.
And I like the way that I like the way she sometimes put on a funny voice like that. And she was trying to put someone in their place.
Okay. For me,
Yeah.
If I'm going
You.
to sort them,
Is this
and
you?
like a, no, what do you do?
Oh no! What?
No, do you want
what
to
were you saying?
do you want to do a wham bam sort? Fastest.
Fastest fingers first.
Yeah.
No, what are you gonna say?
I'm
Go on
gonna say.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hold your breath.
I'm gonna say David at 5. I'm gonna say Ina at 4. I'm gonna say Hayley at 3. I'm gonna say Bet at 2. I'm gonna say Hilda at 1. I'm done. Right, shuffle away. What's that reaction?
I don't know, because I feel like if I could wake up tomorrow morning and I would do this completely differently.
I know.
Do you not think so?
We've said that every time, but we got to be in the moment. I've
Is
always.
Hilda the best character in Coronation Street out of every character that's ever been?
Yes, she is my number 1, and I know this is a joint list, which is why I'm saying I'm willing to
But
compromise.
I'm telling you that I don't care.
Hilda's my number 1.
Yeah.
Bet's my number 2.
Okay.
I think any that I'm going to be unshaken on, it's that.
Really?
And I think I have said in the past, Hayley's my number 3. I just love her and think she's just the nicest, goodest character there's ever been. She's a revelation. She's changed the political landscape of the country to some extent. She's just nice, and I know not every character can be nice, but gosh, she's amazing. And the relationship with Roy, she was funny, she was level-headed, such a powerhouse of a character for such, in some ways, a kind of a meek woman who wouldn't say boo to a goose, but then she would if it was something that she was defending. She was so loyal. Such a loss to the show.
A tofu. Like, you might call her a vegetable if you were going to be mean, but she's actually protein.
Yeah, whatever.
You don't know enough about food, do you?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I will move her, because I think maybe that's a bit of a personal thing. I just have got so much love in my heart for Hayley.
Wait, you marry her?
Can't.
Dead.
She's dead. David.
It's funny that you like Hayley so much when really she is the complete opposite of me, because I am not very nice.
You're lovely, darling. You're absolutely
not
gorgeous. Really. I think we haven't talked about David at all yet, and he's just kind of coasted in, hasn't he? He's kind of slyly.
Bet.
No, I haven't talked about Bet.
Go on, tell me why Bet's your number 2.
She's visually a Coronation Street icon, with a beehive, with a leopard print, with the big dangly earrings. She's just the face and the smile. She's who I think of when I think of the Rover's Return as a whole. I think she's also a full of life character. She was funny. She's a character who I always used to think was just a bit of a blonde bimbo and nothing more, but she actually had so much depth to her. Some of the serious stories that she had, like when they were adopting Vicky, when she had a miscarriage in the late 80s. I just love the evolution of her, from the first time she stepped into that pub as somebody from the Raincoat Factory, and then going through to being barmaid to in charge of the Rovers. She was on her own for a bit, then she was that duo with Alec. She kind of grew up and then embodied in the early 90s with the big hair that she had then, that dependable
You're doing
business.
Such big hair, you can't even fit it on
So
the screen.
big, it's just right here. She was very good at managing. She was very good in charge. I think she learned from the best in Annie Walker. And
she
then
was commanding, wasn't she?
She was so commanding.
And you felt like you would listen to her because she knew what she was saying.
that scene when she chucks Tanya Pooley out, utterly brilliant.
She was
but
great.
Then equally, you got the scene where she gets drunk with Raquel. Hilarious. She just had so many sides to her. Really deep character. Real loss to the show, and it was very sad what happened in her comeback. So the second comeback was slightly better. At least she had a bit more of an ending there. I think that Bet just is Coronation Street, but I think Hilda, and partly for me it is the underdog syndrome, just kind of tips her over the edge. I just can't say anything bad about her.
Her
She's
leaving
just the
episode
best.
was the most watched episode of Coronation Street has ever been, right?
Yeah, she was beloved by the nation. Everybody,
think,
nobody had a bad word to say about Hilda.
I think the top 3 here are very good as far as this is a respectable top 3.
Are you happy for Hayley to be at number 3? I was wondering whether you want to move her.
This is the kind of thing where you could say, oh, my top 3 characters are blah, 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 and everyone would be like, oh, yeah, that sounds okay. You're not going to have to argue with somebody about it.
So are you happy, not to have Ina in there or David?
I'm just calling you pedestrian.
Thanks. Very safe.
Don't
playing
people
it
come
safe
to
here.
us for out of pocket weird opinions and conspiracy theories. Like,
look, I think putting Blanche at
think-
number 15 at the moment is out there enough.
I think
That's
Deirdre and Derek
radical
are actually
move.
the same person. Like that kind of conspiracy
David,
theory.
why is David in our top 5, Gemma?
I would, again, a bit like Abby, over the past probably, since Ian McLeod got in, I'm going to say, I think a lot of characters have been watered down quite a lot. A lot of our main characters that we really like watching have kind of like gone off the boil because, I don't know, there's not as much focus on the older characters as they used to be. And whatever, we can argue about it all you want. I know that people don't agree with me when I say this.
No, I think people would hardly agree with you. I don't think Ian McLeod would, but...
Well, no, but, people have pushed back and said, oh, there's not a focus on new characters any more than there has been in the past. I just don't agree with that at all.
Okay. David.
But you've got to admit, though, that people like David and Abby have not had the screen time that they used to have.
No, when we started the podcast, it was all plats all the time, wasn't it? And I had no problem with that.
You can't even say that about a family now. Like, who's the family of the street?
No, it's
the Michaelis at the moment, and then previous to that, who was it? I don't even know. The Websters, maybe.
It dots about a lot more, doesn't it?
It's too fractured. But what my point I'm getting around to is that 5 years ago, I definitely would have 100% stood behind what I said at the time, is that I think that David Platt is one of the most interesting fictional characters in history because he's so complicated, he's so wacky. I just think he hasn't had much to do. I think that...
Not recently, but he went through a massive patch of having a lot to do for 15 years.
I mean, yeah, his entire, like... As Jack P. Shepherd, David...
Yeah, things would be very different if Jack hadn't been cast in the role.
He had such a jam-packed adolescence and then young adulthood on Coronation Street, doing all kinds of stuff. Like, his wife got stabbed, he pushed his mum down the stairs, he went on a rampage, he tried to drive himself into the canal, he tried to ruin his sister's wedding.
And it all started with that very first canal dive, didn't it? Yeah. I think that... had Richard Hillman not driven David into a canal back in 2003, we would be having a very different David because that really screwed him up. And I think that he was a bit of he was getting nasty during the Richard story, but that totally screwed him up.
He's the youngest, isn't he?
Yeah. And that set him on the path of chaos. We had Demon David throughout the early 2000s, sending the cards to Gail signed as Richard Hillman as well. There's so many little moments, but he's so charming a character, isn't he?
Sardonic.
Yeah. And like you said earlier when we were talking about Gail, she is somewhat on the bland side, and what made her and David's relationship so good is that it was just kind of fun to watch David tormenting her.
I know.
As cruel as it was.
I know, because she'd had no pushback, really.
No.
It's really interesting.
Pills, for God's sake.
It's really interesting also to consider that the future for David, if he's just to divorce it from all of the practical elements of like would Jack P. Shepherd, blah blah blah. Like in his, we might not even be alive to see it, but in his older years, in his elder period, I can imagine David just being a female Blanche, just in the corner, just taking the mick out of everyone. He does it now
already, isn't he?
He does it now.
Say.
Yeah,
he's so much fun.
He's like the sarcastic point of view character sometimes, because he'll point out how ludicrous things are. As if you didn't know.
I know what you mean. Yeah, you're right. He's kind of like the goggle box within Coronation Street.
Yeah, he is. He's like goggle boxing live.
I love him and Sarah together. Just the way he can so easily wind his sister up.
And Nick.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also love that. I love that he kind of instills this camaraderie between Sarah and Nick against him, when I don't think they've got a lot in common except that David is their brother and he's an idiot.
I think this is a really respectable position for a character who's still in the show right now.
He's the newest character.
Yeah, for sure.
In the top 10.
Yeah, and
he's the only current character.
Well, no, you got Ken, haven't you?
Sorry, Ken, I forgot you. I thought you weren't current, but you're with it.
You're still there, Ken. We haven't seen you for a few weeks. So, are you happy for David to be below Ina, or would you want him to be?
I think
no,
Ina,
not happy.
Ina stays where she is.
Okay.
Ina should be top 3 to me, but
I'll swap Ina out with Hayley if you like.
No, you've made admirable arguments, and also if we put Ina in, then it looks too old school. I think we've got a really good mix. And also, I think David is like doing really well for a bloke. And also, this top 10 is a really good mix
You're right, actually.
of genders or sexes. Because normally, genders and sexes. Because normally,
4 men.
It's dominated by women. But we've got Jack, we've got Pat.
Well, Jack P. Shepherd.
Sorry, we've got David.
We've got Pat Phelan, we've got Ken, we've got Dennis in the top 10, and the rest are women, which is, yeah, you're right, pretty respectable for a Coronation Street list. Okay, so it feels like we haven't said
anything about Ina.
Done it. I mean,
why is Ina there?
You tell me. Well, she just is, isn't she? She's great. She was the iconic original Corrie battle axe. You know, just to see her in that very first scene with Florrie Linley talking about the, where's your place of worship? Pack it over Claire's or whatever she said. Mint Imperials, I can't remember. It's an iconic scene.
Just
I can't
imperious,
quite off
judgmental, gossipy. Doesn't realise she's a gossip, like all of the best gossips.
She was she was a proper powerhouse. Everyone was terrified of her. She
was the moral centre of the universe.
Everyone had some level of respect for her, but it was kind of born out of fear as well. I love the 3 women in the snug. It was 2 women for a lot of the tenure, sadly, after Martha Longhurst popped her clogs. And it's similar to some of the other characters that we've talked about. Didn't have big stories revolving around her, but she was one of the ultimate side characters of Coronation Street, wasn't she?
I wouldn't call her a vegetable.
No, absolutely not. No, she's almost a it goes without saying kind of character. And in the same way
she's like the force of nature.
and in the same way that Bet for me is, if I think of a look. She is what I picture when I picture proper classic, brilliant Coronation Street, like a silhouette or whatever. It's Bet, and Ina is like her opposite, isn't she? She's kind of the yin to Bet's yang. Like they had very little in common apart from the confidence, I suppose, and that commanding presence, but they just showed it off.
Women, isn't it?
Yeah, they both are. They both are Corrie strong women. They've just got the looks. You got the hairnet for Ina. You got the beehive for Bet.
And the rollers for Hilda.
Yeah.
And also, 3 of these characters are Tony Warren era. I don't know if Tony Warren created the character of Bet, but he was working. Still on the show quite a lot. I think. Maybe I'm making that up.
No, I think he had a lot to do with it back then. I think. Okay, so let's just have a slow look down our top 30 then, and then see if there's any that we want to change. It must
be really annoying to listen to this because a lot of this is quite visual.
Go and watch the YouTube version; it's fantastic. You'll even notice a couple of times where the picture jitters, where the recording stopped. Like that, it's just done it again. Right, so we've got Derek at number 30. I think there's no disagreements there, as he gets the wooden spoon. Sadly, Abby, bless her, love her. I think it feels right that she's at 29 in amongst these other Coronation Street legends there, but I hope that she would be pleased just to get a word in.
She's the
to get a
newest
mention.
character.
Yeah, she is. That's not to be sniffed at. Then we got Betty. I think that people might be a little unhappy with her, but I think I never was a huge Betty fan. I respect her importance to the show. I definitely, but in her later years of the show was a bit. Oh, just smile or something, Betty, It's very, very mean. But again, compared to who else we've got here, I think they probably deserve to be a bit higher. Alf, are we still saying higher than Betty? You happy with that one?
Yes. He was the mayor. The mayor of this town.
Well, she was the mayoress at some point, wasn't she? Don't forget. We went to Buckingham Palace together.
Is it like in chess?
What? The mayor beats the mayoress.
Yeah.
Then we've got Carla. That feels right to me.
Yeah, fine.
And then we've got Raquel at 25. I'd love to have her higher. Shall I move her? Shall I move Raquel?
Who are you going to move her to? Who's going to be?
If you're having, I'm not thinking of shunting her up too much, but if we're saying that Dennis Tanner, by your pure
you really
unadulterated
have to be in your bonnet about
adoration
my
of
love
him,
for Dennis Tanner. Don't be threatened.
I think I might shunt up Raquel a few, just if we're saying it doesn't matter about her iconic status, I think I might put her up, maybe at 21.
What the hell?
So I've got Liz at 25. I got Mavis, I don't really know, at 24. Steve at 22. I love Raquel more than Steve. I love Raquel more than Emily at 22. So Raquel at 21.
I'm not happy with Emily being pushed down, but the rest of them I think is fair enough.
Okay. Well, let me just have Raquel as that's a little bit higher then. So Derek, Abby, Betty, Alf, Carla, Liz, Mavis, Steve, Emily, Raquel are our bottom 10. Then we move into Audrey at 20. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. I'm just looking at Becky there at number 18. Do you still want to have Becky higher than Audrey? Are you kind of set on that?
Put Audrey higher if you want.
If I kind of put Audrey at 18, I might even do Becky at 20, Jack at 19, Audrey at 18.
Okay.
How does that look to you? Is that agreeable? Then we've got Gail at 17. I would still think that she should be going higher than Stan, but that's fine if you want to put Stan there at 16.
Stan the man.
Stan the man, Stan the terribly good. So we've got our bottom half then into the top half of the 15 now, starting off with a proper legend, Blanche at 15. Happy with not Blanche at 14, Rita at 15? What are you? In my heart,
no,
I like Blanche more than Rita.
I know, me too, but I think that Rita had a more golden era than I think Blanche's golden era was being sarcastic, whereas I think that Rita had some real big stories.
Yeah, she did, didn't she? It's really hard to, in my mind sometimes, to divorce Rita as she is now from back when she was in
This is the trouble with being in it for so long. You turn into what the last thing you did was, but...
I think the listeners are going to be putting Blanche a lot higher. It wouldn't surprise me if she's in the top 5 in the listener vote, but I'll go with that. Jenny, a very personal favourite of the podcast there at number 15, a pretty respectable position.
Is that 15?
13, sorry, I don't even know my numbers. And then Fred at 12.
Yeah. Well, where do you think Fred should be then?
No, I'll go with Fred there. I'll go with Fred because Richard Hillman and Pat Phelan are legends, aren't they? They're just the best. And we have officially crowned King Pat Phelan as one place higher than Richard Hillman now. Only just, it was always a slither, wasn't it? That's separating those two. And it still stayed there today in the final round of Corrieliminator. We got Deirdre at 9. Ken one above her.
I all love that.
Yep. And some of them have come in pairs, but I don't think we've purposefully done it. We've got Gail and Audrey next to each other. We've got Deirdre and Ken.
It's not really surprising when characters come close to each other because their stories have been intertwined.
Yeah. Then we've got Elsie, the siren Elsie.
Notice how Mavis is nowhere near Rita.
Yeah, that's true.
Rita, the old cow, she loved that too.
Dennis Tanner is at 6.
Yeah.
I'm not good. And then we've got our top 5. No, that's 5. That's fine.
Who are you going to swap with?
I do love Dennis more than Elsie. We've had that discussion. I don't even know what I want for Dennis anymore, so I'll happily let you place him. We've got David Platt at number 5, Ina Sharples at 4. We got Hayley at 3, Bet at 2, and then the legend that is Hilda Ogden. Gold place, or is she platinum? I don't know. Give her a platinum mop. She's made it to number 1. Are you happy with that placement? Are we done?
I think we've Corrieliminated everybody.
I think we've done it. Nobody's Corrieliminated here. They're all in the Conversation Street Corrieliminator Hall of Fame.
Except you, Derek.
I think we've done it. I think we're there. I think after a year's worth of Corrielimination, we finally reached it. I'm kind of sad that it's over in a way. People have been writing into us suggesting how we can carry it on in some ways.
I know people are desperate for us to carry it on.
Some people absolutely love this, and I'm really, really pleased that this has struck a chord with so many people over the past year. This is all Gemma's baby. She came up with this idea to supposedly save us time. And I think in some ways it has, because there's been not quite so much preparation for Corrieliminator as there have been for some of the other bonus episodes, but it's always been fun and something to look forward to, thinking, oh, when's the next one going to be? And even if we do bring it back in some form or other, I think we'll give it a little break for a while. I don't know what it'd look like after this, but it's been a really fun way of doing it, hasn't it?
I've enjoyed this. I think this is great.
The random element every month, apart from this month, I suppose, has added that little bit extra excitement to it. It's been fun that we've been able to share our lists together, and we've had to make compromises and negotiate. Exactly. I love that we've got the listener vote running alongside it as well. Don't forget, go and vote now if you're listening to this or watching this and you haven't had a chance yet. It's been an awful lot of fun. Fans of programmes love a good ranking, don't they? Mm-hmm. And this has been a really enjoyable way of doing it over the course of many hours. But
do you think that if we did actually do a proper list of all the characters, not just 300, we only did it this way because then we could divide it into 30 and 10 lots of 30.
Yeah.
That was
the maths has worked well.
But if we did it with all the Coronation Street characters that ever existed, do you think that Steve Fisher would have ended up being number 1 by accident?
I don't think he would. I think Steve Fisher might be...
what about Dickie Fleming?
The sunset somewhere. No,
Can I just tell everybody that Steve Fisher and Dickie Fleming are like the Bobby of Coronation Street back in the day?
I kind of am kind of interested in doing something with some of those characters that didn't make the cut. It feels like, let's get Jesse and Joanne Jackson. Let's get the Flemings. Let's get Elsie's niece and nephew.
I'll tell you what would be something that I would never agree to because it would make me look too bad.
What?
But get me drunk and get all the ones we didn't put in the ranking and get me to tell you who they are and what they did. And see who I remember.
just think a drunk Gemma on the podcast would be entertaining however we did it, to be honest. I think people would love that, but maybe that's for another day. I think we'd better call it for a day now. I think we've been doing this long enough today, and we've had a few video issues which have been very annoying, and I don't want to tempt fate or anything by going any longer now than we have to.
Neighbour decided to start fixing his car.
We did have the neighbour starting to rev up his engine in the just outside the house in the driveway at one point. He didn't respect the sanctity of Corrieliminator, honestly.
I know, he doesn't understand it's important. But, people want to know.
They want to know without being disturbed by vehicle noises. Right.
Yes, vehicle, correct.
We are, yeah.
Not a van.
C-A-R. Right, we're done. Thank you everybody for listening. I've been trying to stop this for a while now,
Sorry.
but I'm just sad that it's over. We'll be back in a month's time or at some point with the results of the listener vote. Go and vote now. The jury, the real fans out there, the people who are turning up their noses at our final rankings and saying, I can't believe you did that.
In Eurovision, we're the jury, aren't we? And they're the public vote.
Exactly.
And at the end, then if we combine them, what would happen then?
Oh my God, I don't even know. Right.
Eurovision chaos.
Let's finish this. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to send us an email about your thoughts of it. Subscribe to us on YouTube and like the video because it's...
Maybe...
I've liked it. I can't like it myself.
If somebody is listening who is really into that kind of thing, you could do a combined ranking once the listener and see who actually is the ultimate all-time Coronation Street character.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. We're on Instagram as well. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Threads. We're all over the place. Join our Patreon.
On TikTok.
We're not on TikTok because I'm a little bit scared
of Tiktok.
Join our Patreon, and then the more patrons we get, the more lovely stuff that we can do as well. And
we bought some stuff. We bought some stuff for the Soap Awards.
We have bought some extra bits of kit for the Soap Awards this weekend.
Thank
so I've got a couple of days to learn to that. Thank you very much, patrons. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Thank you for having the idea of this, Gemma.
Oh, you're welcome.
And Corrieliminating with me over the past 12 months.
Thanks for making a podcast.
You're very welcome. Goodbye.